Hey, good Saturday morning, everybody out there in YouTube land. It's your buddy Choppadong, and I'm coming at you with the second half of box checkers this week. We're going to do quarterbacks and running backs here shortly, but first, of course, I've got to remind you to go to dfsarmy.com and sign up to become a VIP. Use that coupon code CHOP, CHOP, trigger that 20% off discount that sticks with you every single month that you remain a member, and get the content, tools, and coaching that are making people better players every single day because we have experts and coaches in every single sport. And they're all included for that one price. You don't buy basketball and then buy baseball and then buy football. You get it all for one price. It unlocks absolutely everything. So, of course, follow me out on social media. Hit the like and subscribe button to the videos. Ring the notification bell so you get more videos when they drop to the phone. We've been doing a lot of hockey lately, but this one is centered on football. So let's kind of dive in. If you saw earlier this week, we did defense, tight ends, and wide receivers. If not, you can scroll back through my YouTube channel and find it. It's about 4 or 5 videos back. But today we're going to focus on those running backs and those quarterbacks. So let's dive in. With running backs, the inflection points that we're typically looking for, the boxes that we want to check, are a home running back, a favored running back, favored hopefully by quite a few points, and somebody implied to score a lot of points. And then those that are looking to get a lot of touches, now those factoring into receptions, and those working inside the red zone, or more specifically the 5-yard line. Those are the key things we're going to look at. Typically when somebody checks a lot of those boxes, they're in a good spot to hit value. Now, if you study anything like consistency ratings or anything like that, what you're going to find is that nothing's perfect. And this is just kind of lining up the dominoes that point towards a game of value. There may be other extraneous circumstances with a road running back that, he's getting a ton of, Christian McCaffrey goes on the road, you're still going to play the guy. He's just too big of a focal point of that offense. You don't just automatically write him off. So none of these rules are black and white. These rules are more guidelines to kind of help your research get pointed in the right direction so that you can spend less time looking at the stuff that doesn't matter and more time looking at the stuff that does. That's the whole point of what we're trying to do. So if we're looking at those home road or those home favored high point totaled running backs, what we're going to do is we're going to take the spread. If you've noticed, I filter these things out a lot. I do it in my hockey videos too because it just helps me get myself kind of cut the fluff. And it's a very, very quick way to do these things. And then with the point spreads, I'm going to go greater than about 23.5. 24 and higher I want, 23 and below I don't. That's not a hard and fast line. Some weeks are lower scoring weeks, and we've got to include those 23 and 22 point running backs because we just don't have very many to choose from. But as you can see this week, we've got a lot of RB1s to choose from. We would focus on those at home, and then we'll double check their touches, their touch counts and stuff. Dallas on the road doesn't mean Ezekiel Elliott's not a great play. We know better than that. It just means he's a little less likely to hit value out there on the road than he is at home. Now he's playing the Jets. If we scroll over here really, really quick and look at points allowed to the running back by the Jets, I don't know where that column went. Where'd that column go? Ownership and GPP leverage is going to be a chalky goalie. We can see that right off the hop. It's another column that you might use. Projections. There it is. Points allowed to the running backs. FanDuel ranked 16th. So right in the middle of the pack are the Jets. San Francisco's been tough, so that's going to make it a little harder on Todd Gurley, who hasn't been that great this year anyway. If you look back at what he did last week, he scored 2 touchdowns, but he really didn't get a lot of touches, didn't get a lot of yards. You might focus on a Mark Ingram facing a really cruddy Cincinnati team that's allowing a ton of points to running backs. In fact, a Lamar Jackson / Mark Ingram stack might end up getting you a whole bunch of the touchdowns out of that game, provided they get scored. GPP pivot might be taking a shot in a large field GPP on a Gus Edwards type or something like that. Anywho, we're looking for the guys that are getting the touches. We're looking for the guys that are at home and are favored. And we find Chris Carson. He's on the road as well. We'll double check the Cleveland numbers just to see if the matchup's worth it. 21 towards the bottom, so pretty solid, right? Gurley, we already talked about. Ingram, Devonta Freeman, probably not. Damian Williams, a little iffy. So if these are the guys that I'm basically looking at, and I know I don't have a few on this list, like I said, that you might be interested in. We're going to come over here and we're going to look at the touch count. Rushing attempts per game, 17 here for Ezekiel Elliott, 19 for Chris Carson, 13 for Gurley's. Honestly, a little bit low if we didn't add in some of the receptions. 3 receptions there gets him to about 15 touches. That's a little low. That's not exactly workflow independent. And we don't even know if he's playing with his knee this week, as of last time I checked the news anyway. Mark Ingram, 15 touches seems a little bit low. couple of receptions per game. This one is very touchdown dependent. That decreases his floor. I know he's in a smash spot this week, but that does decrease his floor, partly because he's splitting time with Gus Edwards and a little bit of Justice Hill. But he's seems to be the main guy on the goal line. Him and Mark Andrews. I'm okay with it this week in such a spot that he is. But this actually, when I see numbers like this, it does make me kind of put a question mark on him when I'm talking about my cash game consideration. I might be looking up to an Ezekiel Elliott. I might look for another road type of dog or a Chris Carson or something, and then might pass on Ingram and Cash, but he might make for a fine GPP play. Maybe even something a little bit risky, but not too risky, in like a hybrid type of situation. If I was building a hybrid lineup and taking my risk with a Mark Ingram type, I would turn around and I would make sure that my other two running backs are ultra secure, because I don't want to take too much risk. I don't mind taking a little bit of risk in hybrid spots for upside, but I don't want to take too much risk and sink my lineup, because if I'm going to ladder my contests where I've got 50-50s, triple ups, quintuple ups, and large leagues and small GPPs and stuff in that structure of contests, I need to make sure, with most of my weight being on those 50-50s and triple ups, I need to make sure I hit those first. Then I can worry about the other stuff. I want the upside to get to the other stuff, but I want to make sure that I don't completely tank my lineup with too much risk in it, to make sure that I miss the 50-50 line altogether, because that just craps the whole thing out. We don't want to do that. The more stuff that we talk about inside DFSArmy.com, we talk about laddering lineups, we talk about contest selection, we talk about bankroll construction, and we get you pointed in the right direction of the games that you want to play, and then show you a smart way to go about attacking those contests. So if you've wanted to learn MME, fine. If you've wanted to learn what's this hybrid lineup all about, fine. We can help you with all of that stuff. And that's actually one of my personal specialties that you would use me as a coach for. You might not use me for NBA plays. You might not use me for PGA stuff. You'll talk to the other coaches there. But for bankroll management, contest selection type stuff, man, I can get you right, and I can get you pointed in a solid direction there very, very quickly. So if we're looking at these guys here, there's a question right there. If we're looking at these guys here with the touches again, Devonta Freeman, Damian Williams, LaShawn McCoy, these guys are kind of junky on the low end of it. But we want to make sure they're getting high touches. We want to make sure they're getting high targets and receptions. And we want to make sure they're being used inside the red zone over here. You want to make sure they're getting some receptions inside the red zone. You want to make sure that they're getting their rush attempts inside the red zone, and inside the 10 and inside the 5, most importantly. I look at a Mark Ingram with 16 red zone attempts, 13 inside the 10 and 7 inside the 5, and this makes me want to use him even more. So I kind of go up and down. I see that he's a little low on the touch count, but then I see just how many of his touches are high-quality touches. If you haven't looked at CBSSportsline.com, I would recommend you going out there and checking an article out that was released before the season. I don't know if it was a Matt Berry or somebody, and I'm going to butcher whoever. I'm not giving credit to the right person. I apologize. But there was an article called TRAP, T-A-R-P, Trivial Rush Attempt Percentage. And I'm telling you right now, that's a very, very smart article to go read, to go look up, go find, and go read and study. What it's telling you is that there are touches inside the 10-yard line and receptions. Those matter. If you just took the touches inside the 10 and the receptions that a running back received, receptions anywhere, but inside the 10, the touches, you're going to find that's only 25%, roughly 25% of all of a running back's touches, but it accrues 74% of the fantasy points. That's big. That means that if it accrues it might not have been 74%, it might have been, it's over half. It's 25% of the touches, 50% of the points. That's what it is. 75% of the touches are in between the 20s, kind of the empty touches, but they only accrue 50% of the points. So you'd rather take consolidate your points. Who am I going to find inside the 10? Who am I going to find that's getting the receiving work on these teams? And that's typically where I'm going to get a big boost of my production. Those are the high quality touches. Those are not the trivial touches. The trivial touches are what happens to Sony Michel. James White gets the high-quality touches. When you're on the 1-yard line and you rush Tom Brady in 2 quarterback sneaks and don't give it to Sony Michel, that's really telling. That's really, really telling. That tells you that they don't trust him. They don't think he can get that powerful yard that they need. So they'd rather give it to the quarterback. I'd feel like the biggest wuss on the planet if that was me. But James White factors into the red zone every single time. James White gets all of the receptions, and James White gets receptions inside the 10-yard line as well. That's a big deal. James White doesn't have the ceiling maybe that some other running backs on the slates do, but he's got the better floor in that New England offense, and he's usually underpriced. Tariq Cohen is another one. Go study those guys. Sometimes they come into play on the week. Let's go back here. Let's really quickly knock out, missing my mark there. Let's knock out, bring this point total back down a smidge. I want to keep that total high, but I'm going somewhere with this. I want to put it, say, to 21.5. I want to include a few more running backs. I want to take the spread off. Let's go ahead and look at the underdogs. And let's see who we don't pick up on this list that's up here towards the top. What I'm going to do is come over here now. I'm going to sort this by rushing attempts per game. And we do this in hockey all the time. This is something that I'm trying to show people how to do, manipulate this research station to kind of build your own fantasy labs models, really and truly. You cut off this, cut off this, cut off this, sort by this, and then you take the guys towards the top, and you've increased your chances of having the right players. So Leonard Fournette, good play. He's at home. He's got a lower total, I'm sure, 23-point total. That's why the 23.5 cut him off. Still a fine play. Nick Chubb at home. We would have to see what Seattle does in terms of matchup strength, points allowed to the position, middling to tough. So I don't know about if this is necessarily a Chubb week. Might be. Carson, Dalvin Cook, duh, right? Ezekiel Elliott. So Dalvin Cook at home, Philadelphia, 23.5. That's why he got cut off. I mean, so this is why it's not a hard, fast, black and white rule. 23.5, implied team total isn't something you should necessarily cut off if it cuts a Dalvin Cook off the list, who is home, probably favored by 3 points, not favored by a ton, but he's home, he's favored, he gets the touches, he gets the red zone work, he gets the receptions, he's only missing the implied total of 24. That alone, that means he checks 5 out of 6 boxes. That doesn't mean that he's all of a sudden a trash heap, don't use him at all player. He might be one of your core plays. That's fine. That's not a bad choice. That's why I go back and I double check some of these things just to make sure, because when I cut my list down too much, I want to make sure that some of these other big guns are on it. Like I'm not necessarily using a Carlos Hyde. Carlos Hyde, lower point total game. He's the underdog. He's also on the road, versus Kansas City. We know Kansas City gives up points to running backs though. But if I come over here and look at Hyde, couple of red zone touches, a little bit inside the 10, no receptions really, and the critical receptions anyway. 14 touches per game. That's not too terrible, but only 1.5 receptions per game or targets per game. That's not great. Looking at the price, 6,000. I don't know. I mean, I think I can find better backs. I tend to pay up higher than that for my running backs anyway, because I can find volume lower in the wide receiver or the tight end, and those positions are a little bit fluky, a little bit more volatile anyway. I'd rather take the sure thing with the running back and save the fluky stuff for the fluky positions. Why would I take a fluky running back in a position where a running back typically is not fluky? I'd pay up, get the stability, and anchor my lineup around that, and then go gamble with the positions that are kind of boom or bust anyway. Make sense? Let's run over to quarterbacks really quick. You've got a pretty good short list of players there. I'm not going to talk about massive GPP deep dives like a Mostert or somebody like that, that might or might not, or even Gus Edwards, who I did mention. I'm not going to talk too much about those guys because that's not the nature of this video. We're just trying to get you pointed in the right direction with the solid plays. If you want to use a lineup of 5, 6, 7 solid plays and toss 1 or 2 goofy guys in there because you're playing in a tournament, man, go for it. That's fine. That's how you do this. You've heard me mention this before. You use your core of stable, fundamentally sound players to get to the dance, get invited to the wedding dinner, but then you use that 1 or 2 goofy plays to sleep with the bride. You want to be fundamentally sound all the way up to the point where you get into the money, and then you want 1 or 2 goofy plays to push you deeper and deeper and deeper into the money. Okay? Now, if I look at the quarterbacks, again, we're going home, favored, high implied team totals. Might not even need to sift this one out because you can see right here who's already favored. You've got Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Matt Ryan, Jared Goff, who's throwing a ton right now. Russell Wilson technically favored. Dak Prescott by 7. 3 down here, 3 down here, 3 down here. Even Colt McCoy's favored. And Colt McCoy is not at home, but Josh Rosen's at home. Granted, he's not favored. But I mean, these bottom of the list guys are not necessarily what I'm looking for. I'm looking for guys that are see what I'm searching? I'm looking for guys that are efficient. So if I want to see this, it's a free stat. Nothing wrong with this. What I'm watching for is in the year 2019, I want to see among basically qualified leaders who has the highest total QBR. And I might take my top 10 guys and put them on that list, something over, say, a 60. I'm looking for an efficient quarterback. So let's come back to that in a second. But you can see how quickly you just add this stuff in, right? So I've got home, favored, and high implied team total guys. Again, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, even a Deshaun Watson as the underdog. It's a great spot for him. Matt Ryan again. Kyler Murray is a 24. Who's below Kyler Murray? Jared Goff implied at 27, implied at 25. Dak Prescott. So these are the guys that I'd likely be focused on. I'd look over here at their salaries. 9,200 maybe a little pricey. 8,300 is pretty good. 8,000 I don't know. Between just Deshaun and Lamar, I would we're getting into the point in the season where I'm going to have coin tosses with my player pool, and I'm going to sit down. I'm not going to just say, okay, for cash games, I'm dead set on Deshaun Jackson or Deshaun Watson. Instead, I'm going to say I like Lamar Jackson too, so I'm going to build one lineup of ladders around Lamar Jackson and then one lineup of ladders around Deshaun Watson. And in the Lamar Jackson lineup, I'll probably have Mark Ingram in it. In the Deshaun Watson lineup, I might have Ezekiel Elliott and Chris Carson or something like that. And I've got a little bit different lineups, but they're all based on very, very strong plays. I just don't know exactly which one's going to hit. It goes back to the consistency thing I was talking about a minute ago. If you build models, say you're a Fantasy Labs guy and you build models, you notice you get a consistency rating on them. And if your consistency rating, let's say it's all the way up to 65%, that's great. It still means 35% of the time these guys don't hit value. These sports are fluky. These sports, weird things happen. You don't get 100% consistency. You're just trying to build that consistency rating as high as you possibly can. And if you build that consistency rating as high as you can, you know that you're stacking the deck in your favor the best you possibly can. And then from there, you let the short-term luck take over. If you watched my 5-minute video the other day, I talked about a putting contest with Tiger Woods, where I said, hey, if I had one ball from 50 feet and I had to putt and Tiger had to putt on any given putt, I can beat him because I can make mine and he can miss. Very fluky, very random as to who's going to make theirs and who's going to miss. He has the advantage over me, but on one single solitary putt, I can beat him. However, if we putted 100 balls from back there at 50 feet, he's going to blow the doors off of me. He's going to make far more than I'm going to make. Why? Because he's better at getting it close. He gets it closer than me. Therefore, by default, he's going to make more than me. So your object in tournaments and your objects in cash and your objects with consistency is to get close. Get close, get close, get close. Keep getting better at getting closer, getting closer, getting closer, getting closer. One of these days, you're going to pop it. If you were an NFL quarterback, I hated it back in the 80s when they fired Marty Schottenheimer. Why? Because Marty Schottenheimer got you in the playoffs every single time. And I know they all say, you can't win the big one. You can't win the big. Is that really true? Because the more you're in the postseason, the more shots you've got at it, the more you've got a chance to actually get hot at the right time and cruise right on through. So I wouldn't fire a guy that's continually getting me there. They went through a long, dark period in Kansas City after firing him because they couldn't find a coach that could even get them back to the playoffs. The more you get to the dance, with the wedding analogy, with the putting analogy, with the DFS tournament analogy, all of it, the more you get better, the more often you get better at getting close. The more often you're giving yourself a shot at getting to the top prize, at getting there. And that's all these are designed to do. Deshaun Watson, Matt Ryan, again, not bad. If I 8,100. I don't know. I would take Lamar Jackson. I don't know. It's a coin toss. I don't know. I don't need the 200, $300 to come off of Deshaun Watson down to a Matt Ryan type. Kyler Murray's attractive at another $400 discount. Jared Goff down there with Kyler Murray. He's been bad with turnovers, but he's been okay for fantasy when he throws for a ton of yards. Russell Wilson's in the mix with these guys. Dak Prescott's in the mix with these guys. I mean, these are all great choices. You might, and that's why I would go towards, okay, who's at home? Okay, who's implied to score team total points? Who's implied to score, who's favored? But, I mean, that leaves out a Deshaun Watson, who's not only on the road, but he's an underdog. And he's fine. He's a great pick. These are just the guys that I would focus on. Would I come all the way down here? Probably not. On a DraftKings, $5,000 Gardner Minshew, I don't know how I could almost pass that up. He's in New Orleans where he's at home facing New Orleans. Shootouts tend to happen. He's got a couple of decent receivers. And, I mean, at 5,000. Here's the thing. We're looking for 4x on DraftKings, right? 4 times. That's 20 points. Go look in his game logs, see how often he hits 20 points, and then go to, say, a Patty Mahomes at 7,500 and 4x that and realize you got to hit 32 points. And go look at his game log and see how often he's been hitting you 32 points. I bet it's not as often as Minshew's been hitting 20. Now that doesn't mean that Minshew's the better play, but it means that it's a good spot to take some value if you want to then spend up for some big running backs, Ezekiel Elliott, whatever. You want to spend up for some big receivers, in good spots. I mean, that's how spend up for a Travis Kelce type or something. That's where you're gonna have to take your value at quarterback. And with such a weird spread between the position from the highest price guy to the lowest price guy, and just not being a big spread in points often, that's how you're going to get that value to then go to those other positions that are more volatile and hopefully catch some guys on their upside days. You could take a cheaper tight end, somebody who's pretty much irrelevant in Denver, say Noah Fant, who's been pretty irrelevant most of the year, and I probably just pissed off some Broncos fans, but he's been pretty irrelevant, and you can't argue that Travis Kelce probably has more upside than he does. So if you wanted to pay up for Travis Kelce, pay down for Gardner Minshew, that's okay. You get one of those 40-point games out of Travis Kelce, and you get just 20 points out of Minshew, and you're set up really, really well. These are the types of things that you get to think about on your own. We just point these things out to you and kind of show you the bulk of what you might be doing. You come in here to the NFL page, go to the cheat sheet, look at what Geek and what Keg are saying as far as what plays they would be focused on this week. And by all means, use this method to find guys, and then look for their 4 and 5 star plays, their core plays and whatnot, and you got yourself the best pick of the best pick that is most likely to be in a good spot at the end of Sunday. And that's how you play this game, and that's how you use the time that we spend researching these things to turn around and knock all that time off for you so that you can efficiently put a lineup together in 30 minutes or so and be competitive with the Sharks. The Sharks used to have a time advantage over you. They could sit down on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and pour hours and hours and hours into these spreadsheets and build these. We've got all these tools now. Your time is completely shaved off. You're in as good a spot and as efficient a spot as you can be at DFSArmy.com, where you've also got the coaches that can explain what they're doing to you directly, one-on-one, in real time, and help guide you through the process as well as teach you how to form your own process. That's where we set ourselves apart from anybody else. We spend the time with you. Our members chime in and spend the time with you to make you a better player. So hopefully that appeals to you. You want to become a VIP, you jump in at DFSArmy.com, use that coupon code CHOP. And while you're down there, of course, you ring the notification bell, hit the like, hit the subscribe button, and follow me out there on Twitter. And that's all I ask of you guys. Hopefully you guys have a great week 6. This has been Box Checkers, quarterbacks and running backs. And I'm going to turn you loose to build some lineups. Tag me out on Twitter, man. Show me those winning lineups. If you use box checkers as a form to actually build those winning lineups and you have success, I don't care if it's a $2 double up into $4. Tag me out on Twitter at Chapadong and let's spread the love, man. Take care, have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.